Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and another video. My name is Tiffany. I'm a school psychology intern this year, and today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Savannah, and I will let her introduce herself.
Well, hi Tiffany, thanks for having me here. I'm really excited. As she said, my name is Savannah. I am the rarely seen face behind Appalachianschoolpsych, and I am a school psychologist intern in Southern West Virginia.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram. I'll put our handles right here. And we're pretty active on Instagram, and we just love to promote school psychology and what we've been up to. What else? Like mental health.
Yep.
Grad school information, tips. So make sure to follow us and feel free to DM either of us if you have any questions.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so today we're going to talk about our grad school programs and kind of compare and contrast, because I feel like depending on what program you go to, your training can look so different. Starting from the theories that you learn to your practicum experiences to everything, how it preps you for internship. So I thought that would be really interesting. But before we get started, I just wanted to ask you, how did you find this field? Because I know for a lot of people, it's very hidden, or you kind of just stumble upon it.
So I consider myself to be a little bit of an oddity in the field. Most folks that I meet came across it in a college class. I have actually known I wanted to be a school psychologist since I was around 15 years old, and I had some close family members who went to go see a neuropsychologist for some evaluations and some testing, and I was completely fascinated how they were able to take those reports to schools, and schools were like, oh, okay, here's this data, now we know what to do. And even just reading the report before I could understand what a percentile rank was or a standard score, it was just fascinating to me. And I did some Google searching because I knew that I didn't want to work anywhere besides a school setting. And I came across the NASP website, and that's all she wrote. It was, I joke and say it's love at first sight, but it's something I've stuck with for years. And I went and got my bachelor's in psych, and here I am today.
That is amazing. I've actually never heard a story like that before. You were really? So proactive, and you kind of had this vision and goal starting in high school. And I feel like a lot of people do find it in college or after college. So that's amazing. Thank
you so much. Yeah, most of my fellow cohort members, they had someone from our program visit their university, and that's how they came across it. And I typically get that reaction of, really, you knew about it back in 2011 or whatever year it was. They all seem to blend together these days.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, my husband swears he never had a school psychologist in his building. And, sometimes I don't blame them, because maybe they have multiple buildings, and gen ed students might not ever, interact with their school psychologist.
Yeah, I never actually met ours when I was in school. I knew that they had existed from living down south and having friends who were tested for the gifted program when I was in second or third grade, and then eventually myself getting tested when I was that little. But other than that, you really don't have that much encounter with them unless the need arises.
Yeah. So we will jump into our programs. I think one of the first things that you kind of see when you look at a cohort is the size and the population or demographic. So mine was, I don't know if it's fairly small or if it's average. We have around 13 people per cohort. And maybe it is considered diverse, 50% POC, and I think 50% of us speak a different language. So that's been it's been a cool experience. Oh, wow. Most of us from the area, so from Northern Virginia or Maryland, but we had a couple people from out of state.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that is fairly diverse. I would say that the number is pretty average. We have about 12 folks in my cohort. We do have one male. He is, we love to pick on him, and he always jokes saying that the ladies are going to come after him. But we are a fairly small cohort. There's 12 of us. We are predominantly female. We are predominantly white, and I do not believe we have any bilingual folks in my cohort. We do have varying ages. Our oldest cohort member just turned 50. Then I have folks that are closer to our age. So I'm 25, and there's a few of us that are 24, 25, 26. And then we also have some folks in their 30s who are moms with husbands and kids and lives to lead, and we do have quite a few parents as well. So we have a lot of moms, which has been absolutely valuable, learning about those childhood development stages that you don't typically see in school. So we are fairly diverse in that aspect, but yeah, we're a small little close-knit group, and it's been a lot of fun the past 3 years.
I love that about grad school. You know, people come from different walks of life, and you just learn so much from your peers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, we also have only 2 males in our cohort, and I think, you know, they're glad to have each other. The class below me only has 1, and I'm sure, like, while he loves his classmates, it's always nice to have, you know, other people with similarities.
Yeah.
But we need more guys in the field, so if you're a guy watching this, you know, go for it. We need you guys. Like, I think a lot of students need good male role models in the school building, so I think that's so important.
Yeah, in my past experiences, and I've worked with a couple of the cohorts below me, I have some males in them, and I've done some work with them, and I've tried to let them know, like, kids love when guys come in, because it's not something they typically see. Teachers are predominantly female. A lot of principals in my area are predominantly female, so I've tried to encourage those guys, you know, keep at it, because we definitely need you, and we definitely need more males of color as well, and gender diverse. We need everybody.
Yep, 100%. So what kind of degree do you get from your program?
So my program is actually a dual degree program. You start off, if you come in with a bachelor's degree, you start off on a Master of Arts in Psychology with a school psych emphasis, and you earn that at the end of your first semester of your second year. So I graduated with that in December of 2019, and you also earn an EDS degree in my program. Whereas if you come in with a master's degree, you get some waivers for your courses, and you're able to start out a little further into the EDS curriculum. But,
oh, interesting. So when you say after your first semester of your second year, is that including a summer semester?
Yep.
So that's 4 semesters.
Yep.
I always feel like I am, like, I don't know, not lying, but kind of sugarcoating that, you know, it's only 2 years of coursework, but it's actually 5 very intense semesters.
Absolutely. And those summer semesters are no joke.
Yeah. I think that was the worst semester of the entire 2 years.
Yes. Yes.
Did your program have, like, a focus on, like, a certain area, or maybe, like, a topic that they dove further into throughout the 2 years?
The biggest one that I can think of that we dove into quite a bit is the Cattell-Horn-Carroll theory, or the CHC theory. That was a favorite amongst the 3 professors in my program. So we started kind of getting into that a little bit our first year, and we really dove in head first second year when we got into the assessment-based courses and our practicum courses, because a lot of those abilities align with the assessments that they give. They align with the Wechsler, they align with the Woodcock-Johnson. So they really push that on us to understand and also memorize what each ability meant. We did get into the narrow abilities quite a bit. Don't ask me what they are now, because I'm not good on the spot, but they push that quite a bit. And I think it does help when you get into internship, because you develop that understanding when you're running these assessment reports, and you can see the strengths and weaknesses in working memory or long-term retrieval, or even visual processing, which isn't covered in a lot of tests.
So would you say your program pushed for, like, I guess, patterns of strengths and weaknesses or processing to determine learning disabilities?
So this is actually aligned with West Virginia law. We use either RTI or patterns of strengths and weaknesses to determine learning disabilities, and it depends on what information you have available. With our policy, West Virginia Policy 2419, which is easily found, just Google WV Policy 2419 if you want to read more. That actually outlawed the use of the discrepancy model. So those are the 2 models that we are required to use. So if you have really strong intervention data and you can show that the student is not making sufficient progress in meeting those benchmark levels, then you can identify them that way, or you can look at the assessment results and determine a pattern of strengths and weaknesses in that way as well. So they push for both of those just because we are a program in West Virginia, so they have to teach to what aligns with current policy, even though we have students from out of state as well.
I wish they had a national law like that.
I've always wondered why it wasn't the case. I feel like things should be more evenly distributed across the states, especially when you have students that come in from other states. Because I've seen that myself. I've had students come to West Virginia this year from as far away as Idaho and as close by as Kentucky and Ohio. So you have to look at what requirements they have and how do they determine it, but then we still have to test them to make sure that they meet our criteria here as well.
Yeah, and it might be the case that like after you do your testing and interpret everything, they don't qualify.
Yep, that does happen.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how each state runs everything so differently.
Agreed.
Okay, so I guess on the topic of assessment, how was your training in assessment, or like what kind of approach did they take?
So we got into we kind of dipped our feet into assessments our first year where we learned about rating scales. The first rating scale that we learned was the Connors 3. So they really kind of eased us into that assessment process. And then that summer semester that we were mentioning, the summer after your first 2 semesters of your first year, is when you really went in head first with assessments. We had an assessment class that met every week, and we also had some Saturday meetings to practice various tests with each other. We learned the WISC, the Woodcock-Johnson, and all the theoretical approaches behind that as well. Like I said, they eased us into it, and then once you hit preparing for practicum and getting into practicum is really when you had the opportunity to jump in. Okay,
so I'm assuming like practicum, you got to work with students or children after practicing them and...
Yeah, we were able, in the summertime, we were able to practice on family members or other people's kids. I ran my poor parents through every assessment that summer. And I know people were borrowing each other's children and practicing on each other. I actually tested a classmate at one point because I don't have little cousins or little siblings, and I don't have children myself. So I definitely had to go digging around to find some people to practice all of these assessments on. And quite a few of the married folks in our cohort practiced on their wives and their husbands, and we were hopeful that we weren't going to hurt any marriages.
And All right, it sounds like our experiences are pretty aligned. Like we spent a lot of time practicing on, people around us, friends, family, and it sounds like a lot of school psych trainees go through that. And some people really struggle to find like children to test on. For our program, they required that we practiced on children. And so that was really tough. But we started our first semester of grad school doing all of that.
Wow.
And so we had a cognitive assessment course where we, like one day of the week, we learned about like the theories and like the history behind it. And then we would also do like one or two assessments a week where we like take it home, study it, and then we had to practice, turn in protocols. And it was so much. Like it was our first semester and we're like, oh my gosh, like we didn't even know what like an assessment was, jumping into the program. And then our second semester, we started administering them to like paying clients, like with supervision. So it was like very training heavy. I'm like very thankful that like our university has a clinic where we can practice. I think that's what makes it a little bit different than other universities in the country. I know others that do have clinics. I don't know how different it looks during the pandemic. I kind of want to talk about like interventions, RTI, MTSS, like ABA. Okay. Maybe like your training experiences or like how your program kind of went about teaching that.
We weren't too focused on ABA. That really wasn't a component of our program. I know that is the case for a lot of programs, even in bordering states around us. They push for that quite a bit. But RTI and MTSS, from day one, we were looking at that triangle and looking at who belonged in what tier and looking at the movement between tiers and what those processes looked like. So that was something that they pushed from the beginning. So I feel like I'm well versed on that now, but that was a very important component of our program.
Yeah, I think that triangle is everywhere, especially if you're in grad school. Like, that's something that they're really, really pushing for. I'm not sure if all districts are on board yet or all schools are there yet, but I think it's great that they're training us so we can take that knowledge into the school districts and the school buildings.
Yeah, that's that systems level change that they promote, even as interns, that they encourage us to get involved in. But I do agree. I feel like the understanding of the theoretical approaches with RTI and MTSS is there. The execution could be a little better in a lot of areas.
Yeah. Well, like systems changes takes a long time, and it involves so many people. And like, do we really learn like step by step how to make those changes in a school building? I'm not really sure.
I feel like it could take at least 5 years, if not 10.
Yeah, no, I believe that. What about like the specific interventions within like the tiers?
So that is something that we learned a little bit about, but that was something we learned more in our practicum and kind of on the job training. We didn't get a lot of coursework with that. I really have been learning a lot more about it in internship.
Yeah, I completely agree. So like we had one class on interventions, consultation, just talking about those things, but then you can only learn so much about it. I think the true learning comes from like actually running those groups or like running those interventions with children in a school setting, because it's also different being in a school building. So last question about, I guess, your like program content. I want to talk about counseling, because I think a lot of us are, we do a lot of testing in the schools, a lot of like evaluations, but a part of our role is also counseling. And if you get the opportunity and the time to do so, we definitely should. I had 2 classes on counseling in my grad program, and while they were wonderful and they gave like great like theoretical bases, I'm not sure if I had enough training, and I'm trying to get more practice in now as an intern.
Mm-hmm. So we had the same kind of thing. We had 2 classes on counseling, and we also had some accompanying experiences during practicum. Because we would have multiple classes that required assignments to be completed in our practicum schools, and counseling was one of them, where the first class we just had to do an individual counseling case where we met with a student for 6 to 8 weeks. The style of counseling was up to us. Solution-focused counseling was a big hit in my class. That is not my favorite style. I'm very much a CBT kind of gal. But we learned many different approaches. We briefly touched on DBT. We talked about CBT, trauma-focused CBT, solution-focused, and that was over the span of the entire second year. So the fall of the second year, we did have a counseling course, and then the spring of the second year, we also had another counseling course. Unfortunately, those experiences were cut short in the second class for me due to the pandemic.
Yeah,
but in Normalville before COVID, the second class requires group counseling experience. So that was not an opportunity that I had before things kind of shut down. But those things are getting arranged for me as an intern. This first half of my internship has been very testing heavy, as well as functional behavior assessments and things along those lines. But I am excited to get some therapy going. I might be able to do some therapy as a part of a child's IEP, so that is exciting, and I've got some groups that are in the planning stages right now. This blended learning schedule that we're on has made things kind of chaotic, with kids being there on different days depending on the letter of their last name or their siblings. But I would say overall, I think we could all benefit from more counseling training and more supervision. And it is really advantageous when you have professors or even supervisors that have a lot of counseling experience. I know my counseling professor is a licensed psychologist as well as a school psychologist in the state of West Virginia. So she's done quite a bit with therapy. So she was always open to questions and help us look for resources. But I'm kind of in the same realm as you. I feel like we could definitely have benefited from more classroom training before we were thrown into those experiences as well.
Yeah, hopefully we get, more practice this year. And then I think we're always learning, right? Like our first year that we're going to be working, we're probably going to have like so many other new experiences, and we're going to learn every year. Did you have like a set like class schedule every semester, or was it like always in like random times of the day, or were they like always in the evening?
So the kind of mission focus of our program is to be accommodating to working professionals. So that's why you see that span of age ranges in my program. I do have class with quite a few teachers, and they needed to be accommodated for their schedule. So our program's classes started at 4 o'clock. And we would go fairly late. This is something, I got a lot of reactions when I mentioned this at NASP. Our classes sometimes go as late as 9:50 p.m. in the evening or close to 10 o'clock. So there were very late nights, especially on the double class days. There would be some days where we would have class at 4 and class at 7. But my program was very accommodating, as we have students that are not only in West Virginia. We have students in Ohio, we have students in Kentucky, and we also have students that live pretty far away from where the campus is. I'm lucky enough to live locally, but I still took advantage of the option of using Blackboard Collaborate to be a part of that hybrid model that our program uses. Our plan of study is what documented every course that we were going to take each semester. So up until the semester before our internship year. So for me, that would have been summer of 2020. From fall of 2018 to spring of 2020, I was in 4 classes every semester. And then accompanying Practicum Experiences. And we had those Practicum hour requirements in our second year. And in our first year, we just had, get to the schools to finish this assignment and get to the schools to finish that assignment. But it was outlined for us from the beginning. We didn't have a lot of flexibility or options as far as which classes we were going to take. I think just because of trying to fit 2 degrees into 3 years, you kind of had to follow that set structure from day one. That was a lot, I know.
I think it's awesome that they're so accommodating to people that are working during the day. I can't imagine how exhausting those days are. Just like, just being on the whole day, either working or learning, doing homework. Like, how do you have time for homework? Like the weekend or like after you come back from class?
The folks with advanced degrees and the folks who are teachers, and we even have some folks in my cohort who are school administrators. The one gentleman that I talked about, he is actually director of child nutrition and student services for his district. Wow. So he is very much higher up. So I question how they did it, but they claim that it was no issue and that they enjoyed it. And we actually had a couple of ladies in my cohort. One is due to have a baby any day now, and one actually had a baby in the middle of the program. So those folks I consider to be superheroes. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, we had 4 babies in her cohort in the 2 years. And I don't know how they did it, because I can't imagine like how exhausting and like with all the hormonal changes and all of that.
And the newborn stage, my goodness.
Does your program provide any tuition assistance, or I guess like you talked about like graduate assistantship positions, or if you want to talk about like your general tuition?
Yeah, so my university is fairly unique because of where it is located. We welcome students from Ohio, Kentucky, and other neighboring states, and actually I'm thinking maybe Virginia, but don't quote me on that. And they get a discounted tuition known as, I believe it's called Metro tuition rates. And then we also have in-state tuition for West Virginia residents. I'm a West Virginia resident, so for that was about $4,000, give or take a couple of dollars. Nobody ever knows.
Wait, for the semester?
For the semester.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
It's cheap, and I was shocked to get my first tuition bill because my undergraduate was a private institution. So our tuition there was about $13,000 to $14,000. So when I was getting a bill for $4,000 and some change, my jaw hit the floor. I was shocked.
Wow. No, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's definitely a great program and a great option whether you live in West Virginia or any of the neighboring states. So definitely recommend it. And if you want to know more about my program, you can message me. It's always, I always say in my Instagram stories, my DMs are open. I love talking to prospective students and current students. So anybody and everybody is welcome.
Also, you mentioned that your program's a hybrid program, and you keep talking about all these like surrounding states. And
yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what do you mean by hybrid?
So what I mean by hybrid is that we have the option, well, not right now, but we have the option typically to come to class in person those first 2 years where you're getting your didactic coursework in. And a lot of folks that live locally, or we even have some folks from neighboring counties that come in to class in person or to office hours. You are always more than welcome to come to campus, but we also use Blackboard Collaborate. And that is available for whether if you live far away, because we have folks that live hours away, and we have some folks that are in Ohio and Kentucky where getting to campus would be about a 2 to 3 hour drive for them. So that option is available to them, but that option is also available to everyone. I know I used it quite a bit if I was sick, or in the second year if I had gotten back from practicum and practicum was just exhausting and I just needed to stay home, or if I didn't have the time to get to campus, because even though I am local, campus is about a 25 to 30 minute drive some days depending on traffic. So the professors would teach in person as well as to the virtual students, and Blackboard Collaborate, if you've ever used it, has the option to turn your cameras on. We typically do not. And there is a chat option. There's an option to raise your hand. And when you hit the raise your hand button, it makes this like kind of a text tone noise where the professors can see your name and see that you have a question. And it's very similar to what we're doing now. You're able to turn on your microphone and ask your question and participate in class discussions as well. So they do a great job of making sure that those students who are on the virtual option are able to participate as if they were in person with everyone. And it's always adorable in class when they will turn the camera on so you can see them, and they'll turn the camera on to flip it so you can see everybody that's on campus for that particular class period.
I love that. Like the flexibility and just the use of technology and everything. For my program, everything was in person and we had to be there every class. If we had to miss a class, we emailed our professor and they were usually pretty understanding. But, you know, we're all adults, so if something comes up, we just communicate. But for the most part, we had to be there in person. And yeah, we had a lot of practicum classes, so we were in a lot of different places at a lot of different times. So now we will talk about our practicum experiences. For me, I had 1 to 2 practicum classes every semester. Starting with our first semester, it was like our shadowing practicum class. And so we went in and had like a site supervisor and we just shadowed them the whole time we were there, going into like eligibility meetings and, you know, everything that they were doing. And then we went into like our cognitive assessment practicum where we only focused on cognitive assessments. And then we went into like our comprehensive assessments where we did everything else. And then like interventions, counseling, we had like a practicum class for each like set of skills, I guess. What about your university?
So we did not have our official practicum classes until our second year, but beginning in the first year, the university was really great about working with local districts around us, and also they had connections for those folks that lived further away, whether that was in West Virginia or Ohio and Kentucky, and they would reach out to districts and say, we have 2 to 3 students, maybe 1 student who is interested in completing practicum experiences in your county. Would any school psychologist be available to mentor them? So we let them know of our interest in location at first year orientation, and we were paired up with a mentor school psychologist and also a mentor school, which is typically an elementary school. They don't feed us to secondaries just yet. And we had to, in the first year, we had to complete little assignments here and there. My first semester, I had to do an FBA. I had to give a rating scale.
Okay, just an FBA.
Yeah, FBA, BIP, the whole 9 yards. I definitely got thrown to the gauntlet with that one. Practicum mentor, if you're seeing this, it was a good experience, I promise. They really encouraged the supervisors to allow us to be either a second set of eyes or to help them with any kind of cases or issues that they were having that they just needed an extra hand on, and that's what my practicum mentor did for me. And my practicum school was absolutely amazing. It was a local K-5 elementary. So I was able to, in the first year, I was able to do rating scales and things along the lines of behavior. And then into the second semester, we actually, we had to do another FBA. So they had us trained on FBAs from day one. And we also had to do some academic intervention where we met with a student for 6 to 8 sessions for academic tutoring. And I was able to work at another neighboring school for that experience as well. And then once you get into your second year, that's when things really start picking up with the required amount of practicum hours. You had to get certain experiences. And that is the point where you started doing the cognitive and achievement assessments with actual children for eligibility purposes. Achievement testing is not typically a responsibility of school psychologists where I'm at. We have other professionals that take care of that. So getting those experiences was a little difficult, but other than that, I was able to jump in and do a lot even as a practicum student, and I feel like that prepared me very well for internship, and luckily enough, I was able to intern in the same county that I did practicum in, so I was familiar with a lot of the laws and policies and directions that they used in the eligibility process.
So how did you think your grad school experience prepared you for internship?
I think they prepared me fairly well. No graduate program can 100% prepare you for the amount of paperwork that you'll have to do, and that's just being a little bit transparent. That can get overwhelming at times, even as an intern, and especially with the graduate program not knowing where you're going to be interning. I work in a fairly small district compared to where Tiffany works, so I might not have as much paperwork as she does, but it still can get overwhelming at times. But that aside, I feel like my graduate program specifically prepared me very well. With the theoretical bases that we talked about, I feel like I'm able to understand and report back to parents in very clear language without the use of special education jargon. With the assessment courses being similar to what I say is a gauntlet because they were very tough, I feel like I can go in comfortably and give those cognitive assessments and even give those academic assessments when it's asked of me. So overall, I was definitely prepared for internship. But I will say that nothing could prepare me for the type of internship situation that we headed into as interns this year.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's so much going on right now, with all the struggles the challenges that the students and the teachers are facing. I think we learn all the skills that we need to learn, all the theories and things in our grad school program. But I think it's hard to prepare for like everyday real life, like in a school building. And I also talked about like in the past how you have to have so many good soft skills to work in a school, and they don't really teach you that in grad school. Like I think relationship building is so important. And then if we're going to change school culture or like school systems, we have to have some leadership skills or like be creative and work with other people. And so I feel like my grad school program prepared me, but like you said, like you kind of have to go in like expecting to learn so much every day.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like especially with the social issues that we witnessed over the course since March, I feel like grad schools and graduate educators, their eyes have really been open to, okay, this is, our field is essentially a work of social justice in my personal view. So I feel like graduate educators were really concerned about what they were seeing, and I feel like a lot of them have done a great job of starting to incorporate social justice and liberation work into what they're teaching. I know where I'm at in a predominantly white area and in a predominantly white graduate program, we could do well to improve in that area, but working in the schools and working with diverse populations, both with different disabilities, different socioeconomic status, as well as ethnic diversity, there is always work to be done. Whether you are in a diverse area with diverse SES and ethnicities, or you're like me where you're in a predominantly white area, there's work to be done in the classroom, but there is also work to be done on the job. So
yeah, I completely agree. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think a lot of universities do have a lot of work to do, and a lot of schools as well. And I think we have to have those difficult conversations. And I really wish, like, for especially like the field of education, they can kind of implement like the social justice lens for every single class that's being taught, not just have like one class that's like multiculturalism or like diverse classrooms or whatever it's called.
Even those systems level changes at the graduate level, like we talked about at the school district level, they're still going to take 5-10 years, and everybody's got to buy into it. But I feel like as a field we are improving, but there is still a ton of work to be done on a lot of ends, whether that's at the national level or even just at the individual level of really working through that social justice lens. And as I saw on many a shirt at NASP, decolonizing the field.
Do you have like one or two pieces of advice for grad students?
If you are a grad student right now, I promise you it is going to be okay. I know this is not the field that you imagined. This is not the situation that you imagined, but please hang in there. We need you. I know a lot of us in the Instagram as well as the Twitter communities of school psychology, we are all rooting for you. Whether you see a seasoned pro or you see folks like us who are just getting into it. We believe in you. We are so proud of you. If you're looking into this field, it is worth it. It's not going to be an easy process whether you take the master's level road, the EDS level, or even the PhD level. I can't promise that it's going to be easy for you because it's not. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time and sometimes some stress, and you might shed a couple of tears, but it is worth it. And like I mentioned before, especially with men and Black, Indigenous people of color, gender diverse folks, LGBT folks, we definitely need you. Because I think about when we were in school, sometimes we didn't see people that looked like us or thought like us. So for you to be there in that school setting is so important and so vital because you are going to encourage those future leaders of tomorrow, no matter what they do. So to everybody, we need you. Hang in there. We are absolutely rooting for you, and we are so proud of you.
That was perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Savannah, for this video.
Me.
And for everyone else, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram to get connected with us. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.